You see, people think power is renewed at crusades. They think prophets get stronger because they fasted more or prayed longer. But there's another calendar, older than the one you hang on your wall. It has no January, no December, just 3 gates, spaced like the points of a triangle, and if you miss even one, the whole structure collapses. They call them first rain, media crossing, and final harvest. And he watched the man you all called Papa walk through one of them on his knees. The same man that leads thousands was kneeling before another, in a place no camera would ever go. They told him this was renewal. 3 times a year, every single year. That was the day he learned, if you miss one, everything falls apart. Welcome to Dangerous African Confessions HD. Subscribe, like and share for others to benefit from this very video. Let us go into the video for the day.
They don't put this on posters. You won't see it in the glossy flyers for Open Heavens, or the slow-motion clips of worship teams crying into microphones. No, the first door is quiet. It swings open after midnight, far from stages and cameras, and the people who hold its keys never stand in pulpits. They stand behind them. I learned this the hard way. We landed in Accra on a Thursday, Terminal 3 breathing glass and steel, the air unrolling a thick, warm blanket of humidity that smelled like jet fuel and ripe plantain. On the live stream earlier that day, Papa had declared a prophetic invasion, told partners to sow for speed and settlement, and promised the Saturday night crusade would be a portal. But when we came out of arrivals, nobody waited with banners. No choir. No deacons. Just 3 black SUVs idling with soft, feline engines. Headlights off. Windows up. A man stepped out from the middle SUV. White kaftan, sandals, a smile that showed no teeth. He hugged Papa like a brother and didn't even look at me until they were done. When he did, it was brief and measuring, the way you glance at luggage to confirm the tag. "Welcome," he said. Phones. 2 men in black took our devices and dropped them into a velvet pouch that snapped shut with a magnet. I watched my entire world, passwords, photos, notes to disappear into the bag. The man in white passed me a tiny, unlabeled phone. "For internal use," he said, and then, with a wink that felt like a warning, "No pictures." We drove away from the airport without sirens or escorts. The city slid past like a secret, kiosks humming with soft chatter, a woman balancing oranges in a bowl like a crown. We turned off the main road somewhere I couldn't name and entered a neighborhood where the houses had high walls and the night had guards. They called it a guest house. There was no signboard. Bougainvillea spilled like blood over the fence. Inside, the floors were marble and the air smelled like wood and disinfectant. A housekeeper in a headscarf served papaya and bottled water, and then the man in white, everyone called him the gatekeeper, took Papa down a hallway and left me with my thoughts and a security camera's red dot in the corner of the ceiling. I sat on a leather sofa that swallowed me whole and tried to look comfortable. Another assistant arrived, young, eyes too tired for his age, lanyard with a ministry badge tucked into his shirt. He sat 3 seats away and pretended not to see me while pretending to watch a muted TV showing a soccer replay. "You knew?" he asked finally. "To this part," I said. He nodded. "First rain." I frowned. He didn't wait for me to understand. 3 times, he said, counting on his fingers. First rain. Media crossing. Final harvest. Miss one and everything you built in public collapses in private. They don't teach that in Bible school. The hallway swallowed a sound I still hear in my bones, a door opening, the soft exhale of 2 men who have finished business. Papa's face was light and empty, like a room with the furniture moved out. The gatekeeper's smile had warmed by a few degrees. "Tomorrow," the gatekeeper said to me, as if I had asked a question. "We do wardrobe and supply." Then, courtesy. He glanced at Papa. "You rest now." We were shown to our rooms. Mine had creased sheets, a Bible on the nightstand, and a tiny bottle of oil with a black cap waiting on the desk like a hotel mint. A note lay beneath it, for covering. The oil smelled faintly of smoked wood and something medicinal. I dabbed it on my forehead and felt nothing. I don't mean I felt peace. I mean I felt nothing, as if my skin had been wrapped in cotton and I was watching my own body from 2 steps back. Sleep came in slices. In one of them, I woke to the sound of the compound's generator coughing to life and footsteps passing my door, 2 pairs, then one, then none. I told myself not to be curious. I told myself I was a servant, not a spy. Morning made everything look harmless. There was sunlight in the courtyard and birds doing ordinary bird things. The housekeeper brought us tea and eggs, and Papa told me to lay out his clothes for courtesy calls. He wore a navy border with gold embroidery, heavy enough to make a man stand taller. The gatekeeper had changed to a grey suit, shoes polished to the point they captured the room in small, distorted reflections. "Phone stay," he said lightly as we approached the door. "It's better that way." The first stop was an office that tried to look like a living room, plush carpets, a wall of books that smelled new, a glass cabinet full of perfumes with names that sounded like thunder. The man who received us had that practiced gentleness I've only ever seen on men who can make or break you with a phone call. He wasn't a singer. He wasn't a miracle worker. He was a connector. He asked me if I know why Accra is the first stop. He continued that, "It is because every river has a source, and every road has a weighing bridge. This place is both." He laughed at his own poetry and slid a brown envelope across the table with 2 fingers. Papa didn't touch it. The connector placed it in Papa's briefcase himself, then pressed his open palm on the leather like a stamp. "You'll see the senior tomorrow," he told Papa. "Tonight, you do the crowd work. Warm the city. Keep the line moving." The line. I asked before I could stop myself. He turned his head, interested in my voice for the first time. "People who need," he said simply. "Hungry ones. We take the sugar from their blood so they stop shaking. Then we sell them something sweeter." On the way back to the compound, our second SUV peeled off and I saw where, a hall tucked into a shopping complex, banners already up, chairs being unstacked by muscular ushers in matching black shirts. The banner said "Night of Evidence." The font was loud enough to wake the dead. They had a system. We arrived late enough to make the waiting meaningful. The ushers lined the aisle like soldiers. The worship was thick and well-rehearsed. The keyboardist knew how to make a minor chord feel like an apology and a promise at the same time. Papa sat in the front row, head bowed, the picture of fasting and focus. The gatekeeper never sat, he hovered. Backstage, I saw the table. It was small, draped in white, ordinary at first glance, and it held everything crowds never ask about because they don't want to know. Tiny vials like the one in my room. Parchment packets with powder that clung to your fingers. Bracelets made of dark beads that looked harmless on a wrist and deadly in a spirit. 3 of the bracelets had a thin red thread woven through them. The gatekeeper tapped those, not the others. "For those who will carry the line," he said. "What line?" I asked again, smaller this time. "The hand to head," he said, amused. "The quickest transfer is always skin to skin." I should have walked out then. I should have taken the little internal use phone and called no one and everyone. Instead, I adjusted Papa's microphone, prayed the way I had been taught, and watched the first woman come up for deliverance with tears shining on her face like beads of rain. The theatrics of power are easy to fake if you know what the crowd expects. A light push becomes a divine force. A train catch becomes a fall under the glory. People want to be seen falling. They want to be told the thing that keeps them awake at night has a name. Papa had files, literal files, on partners who registered online. He knew who had a sick child, who was battling a lawsuit, who had confessed porn addiction in a prayer request. He would call it out like lightning, and the hall would gasp like the sea. But that night I saw something I had never paid attention to before. A pattern. People would come up trembling with a certain pain, a death, a lump, a restless marriage, and they would leave lighter. It worked. It always works. That's the trap. The pain is moved, shifted, sedated. The crowd hears testimony, the person feels temporary relief. But when they returned the next day for counseling, a different hunger had woken in their eyes. Not relief hunger. Heat hunger. Loss that made sentences stumble. Marriages that had been settled began to itch. The usher smiled more at the pretty ones. The pretty ones smiled back. The gatekeeper watched from the wings, counting people the way a banker counts notes, quick, efficient, detached. After the service, a corridor swallowed us, and a door opened into a quiet room with 2 soft sofas and 2 loud silence. 3 women sat there. Not choir members. Not intercessors. Something in between. They wore modest dresses and expensive perfume. For the men who laid lines today, the gatekeeper said, they need to be steadied. Papa didn't look at me. He never had to. The rules are not written down, but they are enforced. Conscience is not broken in a single blow, it is filed down like a key until it opens any door. I waited outside with the other assistant. We shared a bottle of water like 2 men in a desert that wasn't made of sand. 3 times a year, he said, unprompted, as if reminding himself. First rain, media crossing, final harvest. Ghana is where you wash your hands before you eat. And Benin? I asked. That's where you eat. He showed me his wrist. A faint indentation where a bead bracelet had been. They removed mine last year, he said softly, ashamed and proud at the same time. Said I wasn't ready to carry the line. I thought it was a punishment. Now I think it was mercy. We returned to the compound past midnight. Papa's door was ajar. I do not know why I looked. I only know that I did. What I saw was not graphic. It did not need to be. It was posture and power and a vow made without words. A man kneeling, another standing, both of them agreeing to something that used the body to bind the soul. They were having a romantic affair. Something meant for a man and a woman. The gatekeeper's hand rested on the doorframe like a priest at a wedding, his lips moving with a language I could not hear. At dawn, Papa emerged dressed in white. He looked younger. Lighter. Charged. He touched my shoulder, a small electric shock of oil and something else traveled up my arm and lodged beneath my collarbone. Service tonight again, he said pleasantly, as if we'd come for tourism. Book a bigger hall than planned. The line will be longer. The day unfolded with hospital visits for photo ops, envelopes changing hands, a courtesy stop at a gated estate where a man with a gentle voice and dead eyes told Papa, Accra is the well. Draw here. Then go east. East meant Benin. The gatekeeper had already secured the route. He called it the bus stop. We don't miss the bus, he reminded me. 3 times a year, without fail. Our calendar is not the Gregorian one. It's older. That night the crowd doubled. People pressed the stage with shaking hands. I watched Papa move like a river, laying hands, drawing sighs, spilling words. I watched as relief spread like menthol, and as eyes changed, one by one, into something I did not want to name. I heard the word freedom so many times it stopped meaning anything. The strongest sign came not in the service but in the parking lot. A couple I had seen crying together during worship stood by their car, not touching, both staring at their phones as if awaiting instructions. The husband glanced at me with gratitude and confusion. The wife's pupils were too wide for the light. When we got back home, the velvet pouch with our real phones sat on the console table, ready to be returned. The gatekeeper handed me mine with 2 fingers and said, "Tomorrow, you meet the senior. After that, the road opens for you." I asked him, "Why me?" He smiled in a way that made me feel counted. "Because you carry his water," he said, meaning Papa, "and because those watch water boys. They are the first to come in and the last to leave. That is where oaths are safest." That night, I didn't sleep. I sat on the bed with a little black-capped vial in my hand and the note that said for covering staring at me like an accusation. They say every road has a toll. In Accra, the toll is not paid with money. It is paid with silence. By sunrise, I knew 2 things. Ghana was not a stopover, it was the border. And borders are where passports get stamped, where your name is taken and replaced with a number that answers to whistles you cannot hear. The line had been drawn. The bus was idling somewhere east. And whether or not I agreed with the route, I was already on board. I wish I could tell you I turned back then. But the truth is, I didn't. The first door had opened, and it swallowed the light behind me. You see, people think power is renewed at crusades. They think prophets get stronger because they fasted more or prayed longer. But there's another calendar, older than the one you hang on your wall. It has no January, no December. Just 3 gates, spaced like the points of a triangle, and if you miss even one, the whole structure collapses. They call them first rain, media crossing, and final harvest. You won't find those names in scripture, and yet they sound harmless enough to pass in conversation. If you hear a prophet say he's traveling for first rain, the congregation claps, thinking it's an international ministry engagement. If you see him post a flyer for media crossing, the church runs to sow seeds for divine protection. And when the final harvest is announced, people pack auditoriums, expecting miracles. They don't know the miracle is happening somewhere else entirely. You see, my friend, the first rain, which is the opening gate. It comes between late February and early March, timed with the first serious showers after Harmattan in West Africa. The air is wet, heavy with the smell of soil waking up. In villages you hear drums at night. In cities, the streets glitter like glass after midnight rain. This is the first renewal of the year. It's when the covenant holders report to their masters. They arrive in Ghana days before, for cleansing. Not a bath in water, but a stripping, removing certain contaminations from their spirit so the transfer will be clean. Some are taken through private sections at beaches at night, waves hitting their backs while they speak in languages no human tongue naturally forms. After the cleansing, they kneel. The act is always done the same way. The junior prophet submits to the senior prophet or shrine representative. And they are taken from the back. I mean intimate wise. In their word, it is called sealing the gate for the rains. The body is just a vessel, what passes through is the oath. The reason they cannot miss this one is simple. First rain marks whether they will have voice and visibility for the rest of the year. Miss it, and doors close, crowds thin, partners dry up, miracles stop working. Again, the media crossing is what they also call the bridge of fire. So what happens is that, around June or July, just as the year tips past its midpoint, the second gathering happens. This one is dangerous even for them, because it is when deaths from the first half of the year are counted. If the Dark Lords gave you 300 souls to deliver into their net by July, you better arrive with proof. Proof isn't written on paper, it's carried in the spiritual atmosphere around you. It's the marriages broken through lust, the addictions reawakened, the destinies delayed. That's your offering. Media crossing is more violent in the spirit than first rain. The submission is often done in shrines that are hidden beneath what or where no one suspects. Fire is a part of the ritual, not the kind that warms, but the kind that marks. Sometimes a prophet returns to his pulpit with a sudden burn scar on his arm or chest. He will call it an accident. It is not. Missing media crossing is unthinkable. This is the checkpoint. It's where the Dark Lords decide if you're still worth their investment. If your harvest is small, they take from your own flesh, your health, your family, your mind. I've seen prophets return from this crossing with eyes that flicker like bad bulbs. You know them when they can't preach without sweating, even in air-conditioned halls. The final harvest is always the last boss. This happens in somewhere October through early November. The rains are ending, the Harmattan is threatening to return. This is when they close the books for the year. Final harvest is not about renewal, it's about paying in full. Every covenant has a cost, and this is when it's collected. The submission this time is longer, more drawn out. It's done in Benin itself, at the shrines of the Dark Lords. The road there passes through Ghana, always Ghana, where the gatekeepers prepare them for the journey east. The final harvest is also when they collect futures. If they don't have enough offerings from the year, they pledge people for the year ahead. This is why, in November, you sometimes see prophets suddenly adopt certain church members into their inner circle. They call them sons and daughters. In truth, they are names written in the ledger for the next cycle. Miss the final harvest, and you won't just lose power, you will lose protection. Many who miss it end up exposed in scandals, jailed, or dead before January. The covenant has no sympathy for delays. I learned all this not from books, but from sitting in rooms where these dates were planned months ahead. They didn't hide it, they just wrapped it in language the uninitiated would applaud. Crusade schedules became alibis. Mission trips became bus rides to shrines. Prophetic conferences in Accra became washing points before the eastward journey. The three gates are the spine of the system. Every public miracle, every televised prophecy, every seed raised, it all bends around them. And every time they lay hands on a member of the crowd between these gates, it's not just deliverance. It's recruitment. You think you're receiving freedom. But really, you're being penciled into a calendar you didn't know existed. And just when I thought I had seen it all, the bus stopped, and what stepped onto that dusty road in Benin made me realize this was no longer about church, it was about survival.
What you've just heard is only the doorway. In part 2, we will step inside, and we will show you the faces, the shrines, and the unspoken oaths that keep these prophets bound to the Dark Lords of Benin. Family, what you've just witnessed is not a fairy tale. It's the reality of what happens when men of God, yes, men we trust, men we call pastors, choose to connect themselves to powers that are not of God. He has shown us a journey that most will never see, the submission rituals, the forced transfers, the secret journey to the Dark Lords of Benin, and the hidden networks right in Ghana that serve as the doorway. This is chilling, but it is also revealing. From what we've learned, the reason these programs, crusades, and deliverance services exist is not always to set people free. They exist to create dependence, to bind the human spirit, and to feed a spiritual agenda that has nothing to do with Christ. Every time a miracle is performed with the wrong source, the soul of the person being prayed for is compromised, and yet the crowds cheer because they see the surface, not the roots. As Christians, we must awaken to this truth: your walk with Christ is personal. No man's hand, no church, no ritual can substitute for your intimate relationship with Jesus. You must study the Word, pray, discern the spirits, and test everything. Do not blindly follow anyone, no matter how anointed they appear to be, because the enemy often comes in robes and crowns, claiming authority. Going forward, here's what I suggest every believer must do: examine your heart, your church, and your leaders. Ask yourself, is this ministry pointing me to Christ, or is it pointing me to men who claim power they don't own? Guard your soul. Test every teaching against the Word. And most importantly, walk in the freedom that comes from Christ alone, not the hand of a man. This confession is not just a warning, it is a call. A call to take your faith seriously, to pursue God personally, and to reject anything that asks you to hand over your obedience, your purity, or your soul to a man. The journey of following Christ is yours to own. Do not outsource it to another human being. Stay vigilant, stay prayerful, and stay anchored in the Word. If this story stirred you, share it. Talk about it. Pray over it. And remember, freedom begins the moment you decide that your faith is between you and God alone, and not through the manipulation of man. And while this confession has opened our eyes to the dark truths behind some of the ministries we trust, remember, this is just the beginning. In part 2, we will step even deeper, uncovering the hidden shrines, the unspoken oaths, and the true cost of the powers these prophets serve. Stay with me, because what you are about to see next will challenge everything you thought you knew about faith, authority, and freedom in Christ. Again, if this confession opened your eyes, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with someone who needs to hear it before it's too late. Leave your thoughts and experiences in the comments. Your story might save another soul. And remember, subscribe, turn on the bell, and join us next time as we continue to expose the works of darkness that are hiding in plain sight. Stay watchful, stay prayerful, and stay free.